Consider installing barriers, such as sneeze guards or partitions, to limit contact with your customers. Limit large customer gatherings by offering delivery services and takeout options where possible. For more information, visit www.sknchamber.com and covid19.gov.kn.
This message brought to you by ZIZ and the Fire Department of St. Kitts and Nevis.
I am Woman Fire Officer Louise Clark from the St. Kitts Nevis Fire and Rescue Services with your safety tip for today. Keep items that can catch on fire at least 3 feet away from anything that gets hot, such as space heaters. Smoking materials can cause residential fire death. If you smoke, take precautions. Smoke outside, choose fire-safe cigarettes, never smoke in bed, when drowsy or medicated, or if anyone in the home is using oxygen.
This message was brought to you by ZIZ and the St. Kitts Nevis Fire Department.
All right, welcome back. It's time for our conversation, our fire conversation we normally have each and every Tuesday morning. In the studio with me is the lone officer. I was going to say soldier.
Ranger.
Ranger. In the studio with me, Mr. Williams. Romel Williams. Good morning and welcome.
Yes, good morning, GK. Good morning, everybody.
All right, so what's on our table for discussion this morning, sir?
Yes, GQ, we're basically going to continue where we stopped off last week. We spoke a bit about fire department and having to adhere to the rules of the traffic. So we're not going to be talking so much about the traffic rules, but we're going to be basically talking about more of driving, the actual driving. And I don't want to sound like I'm taking over traffic department topic. But fire department, we do a lot of driving, and one of our main responsibility is driving, because everywhere we need to go, we have to drive to get there. So with that said, safe driving begins with you, and that's basically a general statement that could apply to anybody. Safe driving begins with you, and sometimes, we're on the street and somebody do something and I be ignorant, like, man, it's his fault, I'm not moving. You're only compounding the situation. Safe driving begins with you. You drive safe, you keep yourself safe, you don't worry about what other persons do. So the attitude and ability of the vehicle operator, and in this case we're talking about the fire appliance, the fire truck, is a major factor in vehicle crashes. Attitude and ability.
Wow.
That is why at the fire department, when we train drivers, first of all, you must have a driver's license before you could be upgraded to a truck license. We do not teach you to drive from scratch. That is your personal responsibility. I mean, it may not be a bad thing, but at this present moment, we don't have that mechanism in place. It's your personal responsibility to get your license, and then you are upgraded. We upgrade you to the class, which is a Class C. Mm-hmm. And once we see that you have the ability to handle this 18-ton, 20-foot, 8-foot wide truck, then you would be allowed to drive. You'll be monitored, and your attitude as well has a lot, because if you don't have the proper attitude to be operating this vehicle, I mean, chances are you probably might not be paying attention, you might not be alert, and you increase the chance of you basically getting in vehicle accidents. And I mean, we don't have any statistics for St. Kitts as it relates to fire. Well, I don't want to say that either, but you seldom have an accident involving a fire appliance. Or we have very good drivers, very, very good drivers. And it's not what should I say? It's not a boast, but it's a boast.
Okay.
Right? I'm not trying to be boasting, but it's a boast because we have
It's
very
stating
good
the facts.
drivers.
It's a stating the facts.
Yes. And we seldom get into accidents involving fire trucks. However, our brothers in the US or the other countries that are very populated with both people and vehicles, you have as much as the statistics from 2010 says that you had at least 71,000 fire officers injured in vehicle accidents.
Wow.
71,000.
Wow.
That's like everybody in St. Kitts.
More.
Nevis.
More.
And you might got take some from Munsham. And they are involved in vehicle accidents, and that's 2010 alone. And you see how far back I gone?
Right.
So we are indeed blessed with not having vehicle crashes involving these trucks, because I'm telling you, a vehicle accident that involved a fire truck moving at 50 miles per hour with a small hatchback vehicle, you could almost imagine what the result is going to be like. So attitude and ability, these are things we look for in the fire department. If you don't have the attitude, we also look at the way you drive your own personal vehicle. And we do not hesitate to tell you, hey, you have to learn to drive that before you could come and drive this. So even though it is a plus for the department to have drivers, because really every fire officer should be able to drive the appliance.
Right.
But if you are a reckless driver in your own vehicle, I am not taking a chance with you in the government vehicle that people pay $1 million plus US dollars for. So all of these things we take into consideration. You also have to know the state or local laws relating to motor vehicle operations. So we have to have the knowledge of the laws. We can't just jump on the road and drive and not knowing, because they know that ignorance is no excuse to the law. Especially as a fire officer who drive in a fire appliance, I expect you to know the rules, so you can't come and say, oh, well, I didn't know that, or I didn't know this. No, that would not be a good image for the fire department.
Right.
So you have to know the state and the local laws relating to motor vehicle operation. Emergency driving requires good reaction and alertness. And this statement, says so much. Good reactions. You have to be able to, and again, it ties back into attitude. Because if you don't have the correct attitude, your alertness might not be on par. Your reaction would be affected. So you must be able to see.
Right.
Or you're driving and you see something. You don't wait until something happens to respond. You start to react to prevent the possibility of something happening. Okay, you have to be alert. That's why we say proper exercise. Remember earlier, exercise. You have to be mentally alert, mental exercises. You have to get enough rest. You have to eat properly. You have to drink your water. You have to not overuse alcohol. You have to not smoke. It is not a good habit. So all of these can mess with your alertness, because if you are consume alcohol, and again, this is something that even the supervisor we have to be observant for, because if you come in one day and I see that you're not focused, I must be able to say, hey, not you today. Something is off. I pull you in the office. I sit you down. Bro, what's up? What's happening? And I should be able to see that I can't put you in the fire truck today. So they have to be alert. Wow. When you're on the fire truck, that is not any time for any chitter-chatter, gossip, this. Why you here? Went on? No time for that. When there is any speaking or any communication on the fire appliance, it's either the fire appliance to base or the supervisor to the men. Because at that time, there is what you call a mental size-up basically being done. What we do is, for instance, if we get a house fire, we already start to envision in our minds what this might be like. And we always go for worst case scenario. So at least we are already prepped. If we get there and it is not as severe as we had in mind, then it's a little bit easier to deal with. But there is always a mental size up en route. So the men, they have to be alert. We have to be paying attention to what the supervisor is saying. The driver has to be alert because he has to be able to anticipate the road and the road conditions as well. He has to be able to anticipate the possibility of a vehicle coming out of a stop. You have a fire call in Victoria Road, you have to come across Cairn Street. In Cairn Street, most cases, there's a lot of vehicles on the road. You have to now anticipate whether or not, hey, I think I might need to drive 5 miles slow because of this road. This road is a heavy populated road when it comes to vehicles. So I'm going to have to drive 5-10 miles slow than I would on the Kim Collins Highway.
Right.
That is an open road.
Right.
So rain just fall. You have to anticipate road conditions. You have to feel, okay, well, the road might be slippery, so I can't run as hard today. So all of these things, I mean, you have to be aware.
Yep.
Because some persons, if you're not aware, if you're not alert, if you don't have the right attitude, you jump in the truck and you just drive.
Yeah. Yeah.
You take a corner and the vehicle just skid you. You fishtail and the vehicle gone. Once the truck gone, you're not coming back.
Yeah. Wow.
Right. So you have, and right here it says you have to make allowances for weather conditions. See, I didn't even realize that was there. So you have to make allowances for weather conditions. The wet road, you come across a road where there might have been some maintenance work being done. Dirt in the road. You don't necessarily have to fly through, especially if it's close a stop or close an area where you will need to slow down. Possibility, you might be skidding. So you would need to take proper care when you're passing through these areas. You also have to pay attention for other emergency vehicles, police, fire. There is basically, police would tell you if police is en route somewhere and the fire truck comes up behind them, they would move. They would move and allow the fire truck to pass.
Okay.
Right? Because they basically, okay, well, this is probably preference. They would move and allow the fire truck to pass. So that's one thing police do. And so even though you're on an emergency, you have to give priority sometimes to other emergency vehicles. For instance, the ambulance. The ambulance is wailing, going. You might need to draw to the side and allow the ambulance to pass. The chances are there is somebody who is critically wounded in the ambulance. And because earlier I mentioned, you always imagine the worst case scenario. It might not be so, but worst case scenario, hey, this is the ambulance, let me just draw to the side, the ambulance pass and be gone.
Right. You make provision for that.
Yes. And we should always drive with a cushion of safety. Always drive, give yourself enough room, and I go back up, to react. Give yourself enough room to make a quick, snap decision. So when you're driving, you don't want to be tailgating a vehicle because you don't have any room for no corrections. Anything happen with the vehicle in front there, that is the end, you will hit that vehicle. Because last week, as I mentioned, if you touch the brakes on a fire truck, the fire truck ain't gonna stop right there. The braking distance, and because it's a bigger and a heavier vehicle, the braking distance is going to be greater than that of a normal sedan. So you must drive with a cushion of safety, a safe distance, and even the person who's driving the normal car, some of these guys, they like to run behind of the fire trucks to get to traffic, or run behind the ambulance to get to traffic, and that could be a hazardous situation. The fire truck, on the back of the fire truck, you always see a mark says stay back 100 feet. Some people don't do that.
Wow.
Whether you're on an emergency call or the truck is just going back from a call, the sign still reads the same. Stay back 100 feet. The truck is heavy, it has a lot of equipment on it. Anything could happen. One of the lockers may just open, something fall out and hit your vehicle. If you're 100 feet back, then you have enough time to see that and you make a decision. So we encourage persons to adhere to that little sign on the back of the truck. It ain't there for style. It's not a design. It is there because of, maybe something might have happened that would have caused persons to put these signs on the truck.
Yes.
And even still on the side of safety, we have these big trucks that drive with these big stones. The persons jump up underneath of these trucks.
Oh, yeah, yes.
And that itself, that is a hazard, that is an unsafe action. Stay back, because one of these stones roll out and drop on your vehicle. So drive with a cushion of safety. These are the things that we encourage and we try to do at the fire department. Okay?
You want me to open the lines now
Sure.
Before you continue? So 465-2555, that's 2555. If you have a question or a concern you'd like to raise with Officer Rommel here in the studio with me, you can do so right now. That's 465-2555. Or if you like, you can send your message via BIP. That number is 767-3671. Well, back over to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, GQ. So I mentioned, you drive basically a safe distance, cushion of safety. Remember, safe driving, it begins with you. This topic is still firefighting, but we still like to share a little bit of safety with, everybody. So safe driving, it begins with you. Now we on to the importance of vehicle maintenance. For us, fire department, of course, it is very important that we keep our vehicle in top form at all times. So at the station, we have a full-time maintenance crew. We have a maintenance shop that was newly erected. And so we are better able now to make daily checks of our fire vehicles. One of the responsibilities of the drivers is to always inform the maintenance crew or the head of maintenance whenever there is any irregularities that is noticed on the vehicles. It could be a squeak that you're not sure about, something that you never heard before. It is always important to basically pass the information on to the head of maintenance, who would right away go and look into whatever the situation is. The last thing you want, and again, I've been in the fire department for 20 years, and thank God I've never seen this happen where somebody call and we don't have a fire truck to respond. That has never happened in my 20 years.
That's good.
And it is all because of proper maintenance and proper care of these vehicles, because we understand that when people call the fire department, we are to respond, and the people expect us to show up. So be inside of the walls, all of this is being done. Preparation, training, maintenance, to make sure that we can respond to the citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis in a quick and timely manner. And so too to prevent breakdowns on the road. Anything could happen. But chances are it will happen easier with a vehicle that is poorly maintained. A vehicle that is always regularly being maintained, chances are it will not break down.
Right.
And so it increases the chance of having an effective response. So yes, it is very important to have regular maintenance of our vehicles, again, so that the fire department could fulfill its mandate. Right. We also have now that was just safety.
Stick up and there. Continue.
Yes,
Well, let's take this call. Good morning. You're live.
Yes, good morning. JQ.
Yes, morning, man.
Rampel.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Isn't it a disciplinary offense for any fire officer to be consuming alcohol or smoking while on duty?
Thank you for your question.
Yes, sir. Yes, of course it is. We have policies against the consumption of alcohol while on duty and even smoking while on duty. These are things that we do not allow because, of course, as I mentioned earlier, these are things can impair your judgment. And working in a fire department, especially when you're on duty, You cannot afford to have anyone on staff with impaired judgment, because it will not only affect that one individual, it affects the entire team. It affects the response, and ultimately it affects the person who we are responding to either rescue or save. Because one man down means added strain on another. And so it is very important for us to maintain policies against the overuse or the use of alcoholic beverages or smoking while on duty.
Okay. I'll let you continue now. You were going to get to another point?
Yes. And so we would have just covered the firefighter safety in general, whether on or off duty. We would have also covered some of the basic regulations as it comes to adhering to traffic rules when responding to fire emergencies. So we're basically going to move on to the safety aspect at the emergency while you're already at the scene. And one of the most important things is basically waiting for the officer in command to size up the situation. And basically what the size up is basically getting a mental understanding of what is happening so that you could basically chart your course of action and prioritize what should come first based on the scenario. And so it is important that the officer in command, and remember I said the size up begins from the time you jump on this truck. There's a mental size up, and when they get to seeing, basically there's a visual size up, because you now could see what is happening. And so you have to wait for the officer in charge to do a size up so that he could now delegate who does what. It is important for us to follow the officer's instructions and not to freelance. This is not a time to show off. This is not a time to try and outdo your fellow officer. And we have, as I said, we have some very competitive officers at work. One of them come to mind right now. I wouldn't call his name, but very competitive. Very, very competitive. We call it new school.
Okay.
New school firefighting. But in any event, it's very important that you do not freelance. You follow instructions, very critical to a successful operation.
Okay.
One false move could be disastrous for the entire team, an individual, or even the person who we are assisting. So we should follow the officer's instructions at all time.
Okay.
All time.
Okay. Regardless of how simple it seems.
No matter how simple it is. Two of the other very important key elements to a successful operation for us is to maintain a minimum of 2 firefighters in each team. Never, ever, ever work alone. And this could be applied to anything or anywhere. Never work alone, especially if you're undertaking a task, a risky task. For firefighting, we encourage the body system, which is basically never work alone. And 2 in, 2 out. 2 in, 2 out. That's what we practice. 2 in, 2 out. And so that it minimizes firefighter death. It may not minimize injuries, because one could get injured, but at least the other one is there to help him. You're sending one alone and something happens to him, even with the most advanced technology, the technology might be able to say, hey, you have a man down inside. And then you have to send somebody in. But if somebody's already in to help him out, then it increases his chances of survival.
Right.
So we always recommend that 2 work together. 2 lift the load. All right, so that we minimizes firefighter injuries, whether from lifting loads or otherwise. It minimizes the risk of losing one of your fellow officers because he went in alone. We don't practice that.
Yep.
So we practice teamwork. Even in your workplace, outside of firefighting, wherever you work, practice teamwork. Police, teamwork. Military teamwork. AMS, always see 2 or 3 together. Teamwork, it is very, very important to work as a team.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah.
Well, Mel, we're going to wrap it up here this morning. I want to thank you for sharing the information as usual. I see where you touch base on the traffic aspect of it, though. Even though you might say you're not a part of the traffic department and you're not here to share traffic guidelines, we welcome it. We welcome it. We welcome it. And we also got the insight to see how you guys behind the scene think about the traffic as well. I know you started off driving really young. I was very surprised. I was, because in that era, you have people a bit reluctant to let the younger people move forward in establishment. So how did you, in closing, achieve that respect or regard to even drive the truck?
Well, fortunately for me, when I joined, I was always involved in maintenance. I started there, so I was immediately drawn to maintenance. And because the maintenance work, at some point you have to drive the vehicle. I was fortunate to be pushed. I was always pushed by the top people. Go and do this, go and do that, don't wait. And I don't know if it's because they saw the willingness. And so they say, hey, this might be a person who might be a good candidate for this, so let me push. And I mean, I'm not the only, I might have been the youngest at the time, but I'm not the only young person who would have gotten the opportunity.
Okay.
I was just the youngest who joined in my batch.
Okay.
I was the youngest. I might have been the youngest. And so because of that, I was given a lot of opportunities working in maintenance. I had to drive some very old trucks, like 1960-something trucks, no power steering. Had to stand up to get the brake pedal push in and the clutch.
Right.
So you could understand, and I was a very small chap. So it was quite an experience. And
impressive too.
Yeah. And so I was given the opportunity, like maybe one or other 2 persons was given the opportunity to upgrade to the truck license. And I mean, I was I was very small, Jiki. When I tell you small, I was really small. So inside, imagine me, this little slender chap inside of a fire truck. It is an unusual sight.
Yes, it was.
I actually used to draw attention.
Yeah, I know.
When I drive across the road, and I'd be like,
you're good on you. This shit, I got a right man behind the wheel, man.
I got a little boy driving the truck, man. So. But it felt good. But since then, we have been, and even the fire chief, Agaro, who is now on vacation, he always said don't stop anybody who wants to upgrade everybody. Once they want to upgrade, once they want to learn, push them. But of course, you got to remember attitude and ability.
Which is what you started on.
Yes.
Good note to end on.
Yes.
Buddy, thank you for being here this morning. And I won't see you next week. God spare our lives. I'll be on vacation. But I wish you a good show, and I'll be in tune, buddy. I'll be in tune.
Yes, and enjoy the R&R.
Oh, yes, I will. I was gently reminded about that yesterday. So I will.
Yes. Okay.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned, though. We have more for you coming up next. The Cable will be in the building. We'll be announcing the next leg of promotion, all a part of their 12 weeks to promote, the 12 weeks to Christmas promotion. In the meantime, we'll be back right after this.
To you by ZIZ and the Fire Department of St. Kitts and Nevis.
I am Woman Fire Officer Louise Clark from the St. Kitts Nevis Fire and Rescue Services with your safety tip for today. Keep items that can catch on fire at least 3 feet away from anything that gets hot, such as space heaters. Smoking materials can cause residential fire death. If you smoke, take precautions. Smoke outside. Choose fire-safe cigarettes. Never smoke in bed, when drowsy or medicated, or if anyone in the home is using oxygen.
This message was brought to you by ZIZ and the St. Kitts Nevis Fire Department. The specials at Domino's are hot for any occasion.